The process in obtaining firearms in the United States is flat out way too simple and lazy. This process needs to be more thorough in order to ensure that the weapons are going in the hands of a safe and responsible owner. The current process required in order to obtain a firearm legally is not nearly as thorough as it should be. All that is required is a background check. This background check includes your name, address, birth, age, etc., as well as ask some questions regarding criminal history and things of that nature. According to Aaron Smith from CNN, the background check can just take minutes.
The California attack, along with last month's massacre in Paris at the hands of ISIS, have many in this country on edge and looking for ways to protect themselves. In recent weeks, demand for firearms has gone up. Brandon Scott has been looking into this and joins us again live.
Lena, with the heightened sense of alert about terrorism and the heightened interest in purchasing firearms, we thought it would be a good idea to take a look at the legalities involved in buying a gun.
The process to legally purchase a long gun like a rifle or shotgun from a licensed dealer is relatively simple. No permit is required. However, the dealer needs to get federal approval before selling the firearm. The approval process, which includes background checks, can often take just a matter of minutes.
Make sure everything on the top portion is correct. If it is, sign it for me.
There's an extra hurdle to buy a handgun. A permit to purchase is required, which must be obtained from the applicant's county sheriff's office. Here in Douglas County, more than 100 permits were issued on Friday, with the sheriff's office completing criminal background checks for each applicant.
The whole purpose of the permit application process is to make sure that the person that's getting the permit meets some standards. They're not a convicted felon, for example. They don't have a conviction for domestic violence or a protection order on file. They're in this country legally. They haven't been adjudicated mentally ill. Those are all the things that we're looking at.
Once someone has a permit, it's good for 3 years.
The system is imperfect in that it can't predict future behavior of folks, there's a constitutional right that folks have. We obviously respect that. Our role is to make sure that if you're applying to purchase a firearm, that you don't have these prohibitors in your background.
Now, there is an additional process to get a concealed carry permit for a handgun. For that, the State Patrol requires an application and background check, as well as a safety course. Now, all of these policies come from Nebraska, and they come from a complicated web of local, state, and federal laws. And we should also mention that there are loopholes, like some which allow gun sales between private parties without an application process. I spoke to several law enforcement authorities about that, and even they had differing opinions about how to interpret those loopholes. Reporting live, I'm Brandon Scott, WWT 6 News.
As you saw in that clip, buying a gun in the United States is not by any means a long, adversity-filled process. All that is needed is the money and a clean criminal record. In some cases, such in the state of Illinois, in order to purchase a firearm, you need to have a FOID card on you. A FOID card stands for Firearms Owner's Identification. This FOID card is also ineffective because all a person has to do is order to receive one and is fill out an application online. And this flawed process is where the void for mentally ill people comes into play. Without any sort of mental assessment required, people with mental illnesses could be sold a gun within minutes, which could potentially result in a tragedy.
There have been tons and tons of murders and homicides where defendants have pleaded insanity or some form of mental illness. Some examples include Jeffrey Dahmer, who suffered from personality disorder, David Gonzalez, who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, John Hinckley Jr., who also suffered from personality disorder and was the one who wounded President Reagan, James Holmes, who was the one who shot up the Batman movie in Aurora, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, who were the shooters of Columbine High School. Because of the disorders that all of these men had, they turned to violence and chose to express this violence with lethal weapons. John Hinckley Jr. is a specific example of the ease of getting a gun. Hinckley Jr. actually bought his gun at a pawn shop. Had the gun laws been stricter and required a mental assessment, John Hinckley Jr. would not have been able to get his hands on the gun legally and would not have had the chance to shoot President Reagan, as well as his bodyguards.
Now, if more strenuous precautions were taking place in the time of purchasing a firearm, it could decrease the chances of more of these murderers, such as James Holmes, who, according to Julie Turitsky, was a schizophrenic and legally insane.
Hi guys, this is Jake here, and I'm sitting with my good friend Danielle. My relationship with her is that she's been dating my brother for 4 years. I know her very well and I know her family very well. I've been with her for about 2 years now because she is currently living with us at my house. And by knowing her and her family, this is why I brought her in today. Being around her family, I've gotten to know her father. One thing I found very useful for this project is the fact that her father is a retired Navy SEAL. With that badass of a title, what I've noticed and what she's gone through is his PTSD, which is, in other words, post-traumatic stress disorder. He struggled with his mental illness ever since he's retired, and he still has to cope with this disease every day. So I brought in Danielle here to speak on his behalf and also her experiences with him. I'm going to ask her a couple of questions, and then I will share a certain experience with you about myself and my experience with a mental illness harmful case. So here, Danielle. Approximately how many guns does your dad own and are available to his use in his household?
He has 3 in his closet. He has a rifle. So he's the assault rifle, the collector's rifle, a Glock that he keeps in the kitchen cabinet, and about 4 other assault rifles in a safe.
That's a lot of guns. That is a lot of guns. Okay, next question. Do you think your father suffers from PTSD? Have sometimes been worse than others?
I think that he might suffer from sometimes maybe a mild case of PTSD now. But yes, there was times when it was much worse than it is now.
That leads to my next question. Was it worse growing up, or did it get worse with age?
Well, it was definitely when we were younger. I think it was because...
Was it when he was fresh out of the service?
When he was just fresh out of the service, and that was really hard on him.
Okay. Did it get better with his age as he got older?
Yes. Because actually some of the night terrors are fewer than what they used to be.
Okay.
And he's not as jumpy and reactive as he was before.
Okay. Have you ever felt harmed by him because of his mental disease?
I don't think me or my mom were ever felt like I was in danger, but there was a couple times that it was frightening because the way he would react.
Okay. Has there ever been a time where you felt unsafe around him and his guns?
No. I always know that I always felt protected from him.
You felt protected?
I felt protected.
Like you said, you brought up those night terrors. Has there ever been a time where he would wake up and grab his gun or freak out, and the first thing he would grab is his gun?
No, he would have night terrors, I guess. Night sweats, and then he would get up sweating and be in a panic.
Has there ever been like a special time where he's grabbed his gun during a night terror and you guys have felt unsafe or anything like that?
Not during at night terror or anything, but when it was during the day and there would be loud noises or a loud sound, or even then he would grab his gun.
And then would you say he would like flip out a little bit? Or just be very...
He was very he startled easy.
Okay, and did that scare you at all?
Well, that would just make us very nervous.
Okay, that's understandable. Do you think he should be able to own guns?
I do.
You do?
I do. I think this job that he took on as being a Navy SEAL, he was trained for a job. And he was trained to kill and to protect. And he was very well trained by the United States government and disciplined.
So he was trained into guns. He knows how to use them, obviously. So you do think he should be able to own guns?
Yes. I think he should, yes.
Okay, how about with his PTSD? Do you think there should be limitations or anything like that?
No, I think each case would be subject to the degrees of which they are, but his family, I have never felt worried or scared or threatened for my life. He's been taught to protect.
Right.
And I feel that he would protect us.
Okay. Next question. What is your stance on mental illness and guns? Do you think people with a mental illness be able to carry and own a gun? Why or why not?
Depends on the degree of mental illness and what mental illness you're speaking of. There are many mental illnesses out in this world. There could be anything from ADD, schizophrenia, to postpartum depression, to, mental handicaps. And for all those, there are very different degrees on the capabilities of being able to handle oneself and what they can do in society. And I certainly wouldn't give a kid who is, 14 or 16 or, being able to carry a gun when he's clinically proven that he can't even keep control of his own self or his emotions.
Those are illnesses where you're born into those. How about with diseases like PTSD and stuff anxiety that you develop over time? How about that? What do you think about those?
Well, those again, it's got a varying degree. If somebody suffers from PTSD to a great degree to where their family doesn't feel secure, then they need help. And they should seek help before getting any kind of conceal and carry.
Okay. All right, Danielle. Well, I just want to thank you for your time. This was very helpful, and the audience will get a better understanding of the hands-on experiences of growing up with a person who contains a mental illness and also owns a gun. So I just want to thank you for your time, and yeah, so, all right. I'm going to transfer over here to my personal life. Growing up, my brother suffered from bad anxiety from being bullied and not being the smartest kid in school all the time. He took special classes to be able to learn the correct way that he can. In result of this, he was bullied and always put down. He had a tough time growing up and socializing with his peers. He's a quiet kid that keeps to himself a lot. And one day, a side of him came out that I never knew would have. We were fighting one day when we were younger, and I upset him to the point where he took a knife out of the drawer and put it to my head. Nothing happened, which is good, but that's not the point. My normal brother, that just happens to read slower than everyone else, flipped on his own brother and was at the point of wanting to take a life. What if he had a gun? What if anyone in his situation had a gun? Would he have shot me? This leads to many questions regarding the situation of being able to own guns. Today, my brother currently has his FOID card and owns a gun. Should a person like this be able to carry around a gun? Many tests haven't been done to see if he had anything wrong mentally, which is concerning. What qualifies as a mental illness today? And how easy is it to legally get a gun? Thank you.